So for this, I'll just go on overview of what is debugging. I believe all of us are familiar with debugging, but for anyone who's not familiar, I think this is the process of identifying and resolving bugs in our application. And also I'll go through various debugging techniques. A common debugging technique that people use is basically print statements. And I think there's an explanation here, a code example here. Okay, but where people are, for example, let's say you have a bug and you do not know what is causing the bug. A common thing that people do is basically writing print statements to track variables and also the flow of execution of the code. This works, however, it is not recommended. The reason behind it is it can be messy. For example, sometimes you can find yourself writing print statements, very many print statements in the code. It requires you to manually add and remove print statements. So basically, while debugging, you have to write the various print statements, and also after debugging, because the print statements also affect the performance of an application. So you have to remove them after you're done with your debugging. So basically, you have to manually add and remove the print statements. The next bit is it doesn't really provide an insight like debugger does. So I'll show you this in the next slides that I have, what debugger provides, and also excessive, just as I mentioned, adding print statements in your application, it can slow down the program. So this is now where we have debugger. Debugger basically comes up. It comes with I think all IDEs, and I believe all of us use IDEs. Probably there are some of us who used text editors, but at least for the IDEs that I know, they usually come with debuggers. And for the debugger, I'll show how you can use it using IntelliJ. However, it's the same for all IDEs. It's just that the UI probably may be different. It's basically the same for all IDEs. So basically, this is a built-in tool that allows you to pause, step through, and also analyze the program while you are running it. I give the disadvantage of print statements. For debugger, it has a number of advantages. Basically, you can step through your code line by line. And also, let's say you want to test for a specific scenario. You can modify your variable. The other bit is you can view the stack trace of how the program reached its current state. And also you can set conditions, breakpoints, and also you can set conditional breakpoints. For example, an example that I think about is, I'll just show how you do this. And also, as I was doing this research, I saw you can debug remote applications for complex scenario. I've never done this. It's an interesting scenario that I'll do after this, but because this is a common thing that it's a scenario we find ourselves in. But I found out that you can debug remote applications for this, so like your deployed applications. I'll go to my IDE as I explain this, but basically, yes, so how a debugger works. I'll first show how print statement works, and then I'll also show how debuggers work. Let me see. I forgot how does someone, I want to increase my font. Oh, can you guys see my font? There was a shortcut that I knew, and I seem to have forgotten it. Control Alt. Nope. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, the font is okay for me.
Yeah. Okay. I can also see it very well.
Okay, if you can see the font, that's perfect. So basically, I have a simple example. We'll first do the print statement, and then we'll go to the use of our debugger. So I have, just to explain, I have items that have these properties, which is name and price, and also I have a shopping cart that you add items to a shopping cart and then you get the total. So for the first, we are using the print statement. Basically, the funny thing that I found out while writing these, it's common to write code when we are writing. It's common to write bugs when writing normal codes, but now that I wanted to write these and write bugs in these, I found it hard writing bugs when I want. So that was a funny thing that I found. But anyway, so basically, it's just as there's a functionality to add items to cart, and for this, basically, I'll just add the items and get the total. For this, you can see here, I'll not, probably some of you have already seen the bug, but ideally, if I add these two items, one is ugali and another is misheveve, for someone like Olise Maker, you may not know what misheveve is, but it's a common vegetable in Kenya. So the price is 10, the other one is 20, and then you get, it returns the cart, which ideally should print the total. And if I run this application, you see the total is 10 shillings, is 20 shillings, but ideally it should be 20 shillings. So how you use print statement, for example, I'll just go here, and I know my problem is at total, so I'll just do simple yes. So I think if I do this, you can see total before adding is 10 was added, which is okay. But then the other one, total before adding is 10, but after adding is 20. So it just means this never, the mathematics here never happened. So I know the issue is here, and if I do this, I will see where the issue is. So that is for print statements. However, that is not recommended. That's why we have debugger. So I'll just explain a debugger. So I also have a method. Let me see. Yes. So for this method, I have an additional method that does the same thing as this. Basically, calculate the total of the items that are added. So for this, I'll use breakpoints, and then I will explain this bit for step over, step into, step return, and resume. So basically, if you want to use a debugger on IntelliJ, normally we run our application using this run icon. But if you want to run it on debug mode, you just use this debug. You just click on this debug icon. So here I can, let's say on the, you can also do this, click here on debug. But normally if I run it this way, let me see, let me just go with the print statements. So if you do the, if we do this, we can see, yes, what is printed from this is 60, which ideally should not be the case. So I've run it using this debug, but nothing has happened. The reason behind it is we have to use breakpoints, and to add breakpoints to the code that is running basically on IntelliJ, and I think it's also the same on NetBeans, and also other IDs. So you just, on this bit, you just click here on this space, and you'll see this red icon. And let me just explain this before, because I will just use that one method to explain everything. Okay, so if I come, yeah, let me do this. I think this one, let me remove the delete. So ideally, adding a breakpoint, what that means is, well, if I add a breakpoint at this specific point and I run my application, once it reaches this specific point, it will pause. And if I do that now, you can see it has paused here, because basically I have called this method here, which calls the calculate total price here, and at this specific point where I added my breakpoint, this way it stops. So it pauses, I mean, and I did mention about the advantages of using a debugger. Basically, you can go step by step, you can modify the variables, you can view, and also set conditional breakpoints. So I'll just show the step by step, and also I'll show the modifying and also viewing. So if I come here, and we know the bug here is the total, and ideally on first execution, I'm imagining my total should be 0. So if I come here, I hover or even use these threaded variables, I can already see my total is 30. And since this has 2 items, let me do it again, and you can see it's 40, but ideally it should be 10. So we already know the bug, where the bug is. Basically, it should be total is equals to 0. So that because it took the total from this calculation. But ideally from using the debugger, I can already see the problem was this variable already had a value. That's why I was not getting 30 as expected. So if you want to disable, so let me just resume. Okay, let me now explain this bit for resume. So as you can see here, resume, it just continues execution until the next breakpoint or until the program completes. So for the resume, you'll see it's here. You can resume this way, and you can see the application has, its execution has continued. And then since we knew we have already solved our bug, I'll just run it again. And we can see now I have the correct value, which is 30. But now I'll explain step over. Step over basically, let me do this. Yes. So as for step over, it's basically execute the current line of code and also move to the next one, skipping over any method calls. So I'll just use this. So I will run the debugger, run my application on debug. Okay. A common thing that people do while debugging is, you can see here I've muted the breakpoints, and I was trying to run the debugger, but my application was not stopping at this point. So also be conscious about this bit. So when I do that, you can see it stops here. If I want to move to the next line, I can just use step over, which is here, and you can see it takes me to the next line to be executed. And here I can view what my cart comprises of. So it comprises of 2 items, and the total is 30. And I can move to the next bit, which is this return bit. And as you can see, it returns, it is basically we do not go into detail in this method. Basically, as I explained here, it skips over any method call. And I'll just resume. I will go and explain step into. So for step into is, if the current line contains any method call, you can step into that method, allowing you to debug that method internals. And also, I'll also explain step return. Basically, this is getting out of that method. So if you are inside a method, this will execute the remaining code in the method and return control to the calling function. So I'll just use the same example. Yes. So if I run it on debug mode, it stops here. If I want to step into this method, I'll just use step into. You can see it goes to this method. If I want to go back, let's say I've figured that I've solved or whatever I wanted to do here, I've already done. I move into, once again, moving to the next line, I will use step over, but let's say whatever I wanted to look here, I've already done. I'll just step out, and it will take me back to where this method was called. Yeah, so basically that is it. And one of the things that, let me see. yeah, one of the things that I explained is you can inspect variables. So to inspect variables, you can either hover, which is this way, and you can see the specific. Let me do this. You can see the specific. For example, this is a list of items. I can see the specific. You can see this is the first item and the second item, and I can go deeper into it and also see what this item comprises of. So it's name, price, and also the same case for the second item, name, price. You can either hover there or just use the bottom console here where you can still do the same. And the other thing that I mentioned is we can change, basically this is for inspecting variables. The other thing that I also mentioned is we can modify variables. Let's say you want to test for a specific scenario. I do not have a scenario in mind, but I'll just I'll just modify the price of this misheveve. Let's say we know our economy is going well. Our government does not have mercy on us, so the price of misheveve has increased to that. So I want to let me also do that again. Here, while on cart, I can just come directly to this misheveve and modify the price to 30 shillings. And we expect if the price is 30 shillings, what will be printed here will be 40. And I'll just do that and continue. And you can see here it's 40. So basically use this to test for scenarios that you may be experiencing issues. Back to my slides. So for the cost stack, I did explain that. Let me also do this again. Basically, you can see, let me run it again. So basically, as you can see here on the threads, and you can see, for example, I think the best example to explain is using this. Yes, so for example, the calculate total is called on this method, which is using breakpoints. Here we can see how this, the flow of our application. Basically, it was first here main on line number 4. This is what we called using breakpoints on line number 21. On line number 21, this is where we call this method calculate total price. Basically, we can see how our application, how the code is being executed. And the other bit that we can do is we can evaluate our expression. There usually a shortcut for this, but let me explain this, and also using conditional breakpoints. I'll also explain this. So the same case, let's say your code has an issue. I'll just use this to explain. Let's say your code has an issue. Let me think. Okay, let's say this loop has our list has 2 items, and I only want this the breakpoint to pause for this product that is called misheveve. So I'll just come here and add a conditional breakpoint. You do that by, so basically it's just writing normal Java code. Item.name.equals, yes, done, and I will run, and you will see it. Okay, yeah. We see it stops at the second item, which is misheveve, or rather, let me come here, which is misheveve, and it ignored the first one, which is ugali. So basically, you use this to pause execution only for if a specific condition is made. So I did display, for example, if a variable has a particular value. I guess that is it in regards to this. Other things to mention probably is just be on the checkout on enabling and disabling breakpoints. There are different ways that you can enable and disable, so I'll just show that. One is this way. The other one is, let me do this. The other one is, let me just come back here. Yeah, the other one is you can just do it this way, or sometimes when I click, yeah, you can see when I click here, I'm able to disable or enable. The other common way is you just come here and view all your breakpoints. It's not something that I've read somewhere, but normally, if also your application has too many breakpoints, it will also affect how fast your application is running. That is locally. So it's also recommended that once you're done with your breakpoint, just go away with it. And quick way to do it is just come here and do that, and you'll have disabled all breakpoints that you had previously set. Any other thing to mention? I think the other thing to mention is we always experience bugs in our application, and I have taught you the recommended way of solving bugs. However, this does not mean that you'll always solve your bugs, and sometimes we find ourselves taking too much time in solving bugs. So what is not here on the ID is basically if you have bugs and it's taking a lot of time, just ask your fellow developer. That is if you're working in a team. And yeah, that is it for my presentation. So I will leave you with one meme here. I always love making my presentation fun. So thank you. Any questions? Ian, I think I'm done. Yeah, we can also see the main. Is there anyone with a question?
Yeah, I think mine is just to appreciate you for the presentation. I think there's a lot of things that were there that I didn't know about, especially using the debugger. I only knew about breakpoints, but especially being able to pick into a particular section of your breakpoint and seeing the status of the variables, I think that was very eye-opening, and I'm sure I'll be using that. I was using breakpoints just to see whether a function has been called. So I would put the breakpoint, run it, just in a point where I was thinking, maybe because my code, the reason why my code is not working is this function is not being called. But you've really extended it so nicely. So thank you for that.
So I think Sam was here debugging using print statements.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Yes, Joe?
I actually relate to what Sam is saying. So for me, I'm a print guy. So the bad thing about printing is that sometimes you forget where you put it if your code is right. So yeah, I think I'll shift to this actually. I think it's very convenient. Thank you for the wonderful presentation.
You're welcome.
Nice. Yes, that's some good feedback, Lenny, for you. Anyone else with a question for Lenny? Yes. Steve?
Yeah, thank you so much, Lenny. It was a wonderful presentation. Don't know if I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so my question is, I don't know if you've ever used this, I don't know if it is a debugging method called logging, which I believe it is, the process of capturing and recording application runtime information. Because I've tried several times implementing it in my good project, but every time it keeps on failing. So I don't know, is it because I'm using dependencies which are deprecated, or logging has entirely been deprecated in Java? Maybe if you could be able to clarify on that.
You're saying